have the pleasure of speaking with Kevin Ryan. He's the head of revenue at IBISWorld. Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, right on. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited to get in. So for those who may be unfamiliar with you, your background, or your line of work, can you just, start kind of from the tippy top for us?
Yeah, so I work for IBISWorld. We are a world's leader in industry research and company data. So we focus on helping our clients get an understanding of their markets they play in, the industry's risks and trends, to help execute their strategies at scale. So we're a global B2B organization, and I lead revenue operations for IBISWorld. And so my whole job is to think about how do we engage with our customer as early as, never understanding who IBISWorld is, and effectively move them through our funnel and keep and retain them and grow them for life. And so it's all about finding that right mix and that right motion. And, we keep going.
I love that. You're actually doing a talk here at 6sense, and your topic is rebuilding your go-to-market strategy, how intent data fuels progress. Holy shit, that's an important conversation. Can we dive into some of the key insights, any tactical takeaways that you have from that specific session?
Yeah, so I think for us, it was all about kind of understanding what the value of intent data is and how to best operationalize it. And I think that's the big thing that kind of ticked over for us in this journey is, when you onboard any resource, especially like 6sense, it's not a light switch. When you flip it on and off, it doesn't just operate on its own. It's about understanding the data, understanding what it means for you, and then figuring out exactly how that fits in your workflow and process. And so for us, the journey was really about rethinking where we wanted our reps to focus, where we would have the best outcomes, and what did it mean to meaningfully adjust and overhaul our process to generate the best result. And so it's really interesting to see our evolution over the course of the last year because, we've gone on this journey of rethinking what did our ICP look like? What did we care about? How did we want to speak to our clients? Who were they? Where were they on their buyer journey? And so getting really into the nitty-gritty of understanding how our buyers wanted to buy and how we could best support them in that evolution and that education journey. Mm-hmm. So it's been a really interesting and awesome and challenging environment to work through. But that's been kind of our journey. And at this conference, I just shared what our experience has been, the good, the bad, the ugly, because it's a road filled with friction. It's a road filled with awesome outcomes and opportunities and exciting, things to cover. But, it's one everybody's going through.
What are some of the opportunities that demand gen marketers and go-to-market leaders can be excited for as we approach 2025?
I think it's personalization. This idea about, cutting through the sea of the same and figuring out how do you really meaningfully engage with your buyers at the right level, at the right stage, saying the right thing. I think you can walk around here today and that seems to be like such a consistent through line. And how do we work together as a community to figure out what's really meaningful and how can we push that meaningful content and context to our buyers at any given time that then, quality in, quality out. And that's what I think as I walk around here and I see kind of where we're going, that idea around personalization to the buyer and to that human is a really exciting journey to go on.
Quality in, quality out. Yeah. I'm going to use that for the title of this episode.
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, because it's fun, because that's really what it's all about. And it's like, how many times are you going to get, hit with the same message, the same way, the same time, and your inbox is probably just as scary as mine is, and everybody else's is. But it's like, I have no doubt that whatever or whoever's trying to reach out to me actually has value for me in my role. But it's like, I'm a human. I'm not a title on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, how do we really make that a core part of our DNA as marketers, as revenue leaders? And I'll call us, we need a name for it because we tend to say marketing and revenue. We are one team and one journey in this. And so we really need to think about, as demand gen leaders and what have you. But yeah, those are the things that I think will be really exciting to see continue to evolve over the next year or so.
I love that. How does one master personalization? Is that just research the hell out of something, or is that you need to buy tech? I know it's a mixture of both, but what other insights do you have? If that's the key topic, if that's what we need to be planning for 2025 tactically, how does a demand gen marketer become an expert in personalization?
I think first it's about experiencing the buyer journey for yourself, right? When's the last time, you bought a solution like yours that you're selling? Because if you're never on the other side of that fence, you'll never be able to put yourself in the shoes of that individual. And then I think it's really about, sure, the research journey and leading into like Gen AI that can help deliver that personalization. But I still think with the surge of Gen AI, that human oversight and input is so important, because you have to be able to have that conversation like we are sitting here right now and having this. And so I don't necessarily think I know I don't have the answer to that. But in some way, shape, or form, we have to figure out how to use the best parts of Gen AI to scale and drive efficiency and integrate that human oversight to contextualize, to empathize. And if we can do that and put ourselves in our buyer's shoes, I think that could be really powerful and move the needle quite a bit.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's another P word that we're going to dive into that you have an extensive amount of experience in, and that is predictability. The hot topic right now is building a well-oiled demand gen engine that is forecastable and predictable. How does one do that?
You might need to let me know when you figure it out. I think what it's really about is being very specific and clear about what you want your outcomes to be, defining and understanding your terms so you understand and know where every single buyer is in the stage of their journey, and then track, measure, iterate. And when you start to do those things, and that's kind of what took us probably a little bit, we've been a 6sense customer for a couple years, and it took us a little while to kind of get to that phase, which is really understanding what intent means, how do you use it, and in what meaningful ways can your team access all of the rich insight and context in there to push it back to the buyer. And so I think really what you have to do is you have to start at the very basics and standardizing your process, your terms, your defined outcomes, building the motion that supports it, and then you're constantly going back and iterating it. And then you use that insight and data to contextualize it back top of the funnel to continue to push everything through. And so it becomes this like constant feedback loop for you, right? You can kind of see where the leaks in your bucket are. You can kind of see what's making a lot of progress and a lot of positive gains. And then you just keep iterating on that back. And I think if you can achieve that, I think the sky's the limit, because you have the foundation to really build something cool and special.
I love that. Let's dive into some of the roles and responsibilities. So you're obviously head of revenue, so you have a team, and sometimes the team is the one that handles the tactical, and the strategic leader is the one that's outlining the goals and the motions, and the team there goes out and execute. How do we ensure communication from the top line strategy down to the executional tactics and the team and the management and go to market? Like, any tips and tricks?
Yeah, so something that we've actually implemented that's worked really well for us, and this is a product development framework, but it's called 10-50-99. And so we use it to communicate large projects throughout the executive stakeholders and leaders of any project. So at that 10% stage, you're really early in the vision creation of an idea and a concept. So you check off all those questions you want to ask about what is the impact, what are we trying to achieve, et cetera, et cetera. You come back at the 50% stage with, we have a model built, we understand ROI, whatever those key benchmarks are. Does this achieve what we originally set out to achieve? Yes, no, maybe, adjust, iterate. And then at 99 is kind of that final percent stage where you're like, all right, we've hit all the check marks, let's go and execute it. And so we've used that to sit back and say, at every stage, we're always talking about the original goal, the progress we made, and where we are. And that makes it really easy to communicate up, down, left, right. And I think that's become a really solid part of our DNA and how we kind of try to eliminate some of that friction early. But, that's not easier said than done.
Totally.
I'd say.
Have you ever had somebody disagree with an approach?
Of course.
How do you handle that?
How have I handled it, or how should I have handled it?
Both, if you're willing.
Well, yeah, I think this is one of the really interesting things about this journey around sales and marketing alignment, and how do we get to this place where it doesn't matter whose win it is, because it's everybody's. And so I think in the past, I've had such a honed in focus on the result and the outcome that, I wanted all those wins and that credit and that success. And it took me a long time to kind of beat that out of me and realize that, we are all on the same team working together. And there was a really fantastic presentation the other day from Orem. The revenue funnel is not a relay race where, marketing hands off to sales, who hands off to, product, and hands off to customer success. It's more like a rugby team. You're all moving down the field together. And so I think when you have that open and honest line of communication, you can break some of those molds. And so, I'd say earlier, when people disagree, you get your back up, you feel a little bit defensive, but, now it's kind of about, okay, same thing as I said earlier about our buyers. Let me sit on your side and let's understand that. So it's a level of seeking to understand. It's a level of vulnerability and openness. And if you've established that relationship as a team together to realize we are looking to achieve the same thing, you can make a lot of headway. But you'll never fully remove friction, right? Because a little friction's a good thing.
It's good. Always challenge the status quo. That's what I like to say. I love that analogy of the rugby team. I think that is so cool. I'm going to use that. I'll quote you. I'm not going to steal it from you.
No,
but
that was, shout out Orem. That was not
Orem.
me. So I can't take credit for it either, but...
We'll give credit where credit is due. I love that. But oh my goodness, that is awesome. So one of the ways that this is kind of my hack for getting buy-in for something that may be a new idea, new strategy, whatever you want to call it, is to kind of back the way into what I'm proposing. So, for example, I'd have a conversation with you. I would pick your brain on what you felt was important, align on the strategy, and get your 2 cents, almost if I were to quote you verbatim, and use that to then come back and say, well, this is how it's going to get us here, and essentially back into the buy-in, and then have a conversation on agree, disagree, tacticals, anything thereafter. And I find that positioning myself less of the hero and positioning you more of the hero, and how I call myself like a sidekick. I'm here to sidekick and champion the hero. I find that helps individuals who kind of have an ego. We all have an ego, right? But if you're dealing with somebody who is of senior leadership, and you're a little bit intimidated and you need to go in and get that buy-in from them to kind of, pulse check the ego a little bit and, feed it to them back, and then say, here's how I think we can be really great partners, and here's the plan and the strategy. What do you think about that?
I think that's fantastic. And I think going in and you have this initial sense of, if I'm picking this up right, curiosity to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Of hey, how would you do this? Here's what I'm seeing. What could we do? What do you think about this? And I actually think that's just a generally great way to go about it, regardless of level, title, seniority, is that we all don't have the answers regardless of all of those things, right? And so I think that's a good thing for all of us to sit back and be sure, I might have some preconceived ideas and notions about what the solution would be, but I'm not the foremost expert on any of this or anything, anywhere, all at once. And so I actually think that's probably the best way in which we should go about this, because you can get a different perspective. You can also stress test your ideas in a more open environment. You remove that friction early, and then that makes for a really valuable conversation. So yeah, I'm all about that.
Cool. Well, phew.
Yeah, I think you nailed that. Yeah.
I always tell everybody, if you don't get your ass chewed out at least once, are you even growing?
For sure not. Yeah. Maybe a couple more times. A couple more times. Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel like it's crucial, though. And actually, when I was early starting off my career, this is my advice to other demand gen marketers early in their life. I've preached this since day one, is to openly ask to be chewed out. Openly ask for that type of hit it to me straight feedback. Come into the presentation and say, I am trying to learn. I'm trying to grow. I'm trying to get a seat at the table. This is my limited knowledge. Pick me to pieces. And the amount of people that are willing to do that in a way to encourage you and to grow your skill set, and not just, to just be a jerk. But I find that having that level of curiosity, having that level of type of grit, if you will, to seek that next step, I have found to be very, very valuable. You encounter individuals like yourself, this awesome conversation, or if I were to go to you and be like, hey, I'm trying to learn how to do X, Y, and Z, can you teach me? Would you not be like, oh my gosh, absolutely, I'm flattered, right?
Exactly. Well, it's interesting. I mean, for those that aren't necessarily, open to that? Like, how do you force yourself to do that, right? Like, because there's a certain subset of individuals that would be like, ooh, that's like way too terrifying for me to do. So, what would your advice be back to them to say, like, is it just like a, hey, dive in, or like, what could you do differently, you think?
It is 1,000% terrifying, and it will never not be terrifying, because it's a level of insecurity that we have when we don't know something and we're asking for that sense of growth. But the way that I have been able to get over that is I actually had a mentor tell me and champion me individually and coach me before I had in that big conversation. So that's my advice, is to find somebody who is still a little bit like title-wise above you, who you can like send that to, have that conversation, have them kind of, coach you through that. And then if they need to, sometimes they can broker that introduction if you're not quite there, on the chain of the org chart and stuff, depending on how all that's set up. And they can champion that this person is trying to learn, whatever. But absolutely, it's going to be terrifying. And sometimes you can ask for that coach to be in the room with you if you just need that emotional support. But I always tell everybody, you will feel so much better afterward knowing that you did it.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. The relationship and mentorship is such a massive, underutilized thing in this world, in this space. It's like, look at us out here. Look at this community. There's so many people that you can engage with. They don't have to be in your org. They don't have to be in the same space as you.
Yeah.
But there's so many people that are willing to come together to help each other. It's like, that's what makes this really special, and us leaning into that, I think, is really, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? And so if we can really continue to buy into that, find yourself a mentor, find yourself someone that you can learn from, that you can stress test these ideas, that you can build that relationship with, that you can take that hard feedback and multiply that, and then all of a sudden we become a really powerful group together. So like, spot on.
I appreciate that. One more question for us today. As we are in Q4 planning, budget, strategies, what is something that you would say are one do and one don't for demand gen marketers and go-to-market leaders as we approach 2025?
Have a Gen AI strategy. It's here. It's coming. What does it mean for you? Whether that's in how you effectively create content, how you integrate it into your sellers' motions, how it benefits your client base. Have that. That would be my do. And I'm not sitting here saying that even I have that ready to go. That's kind of like, Kev, you got to do that. The don't would be, don't confuse scale with effectiveness. And I think, kind of parlaying off the Gen AI thing is that we've all tried to achieve this mass amount of scale, and it's diminished quality. I think that kind of brings us back to, the very first question about personalization. Don't confuse the two. As someone who 100% has and done, and I'm sure a lot of us have, really thinking about that and its effectiveness and its impact will be the biggest thing.
Quality in, quality out. That's where we're going to...
There you go. Quality in, quality out.
That's what we're going to go with for today's conversation. Kevin, this has been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Demand Gen Made Simple show. If you found value in today's episode, please consider leaving a review, as it really helps me reach more people just like you. And make sure to subscribe so you can be notified when the next episode drops. Thank you, and see you next time.